SLT Fibre and experience the power of fibre technology. Sri Lanka's only super fast internet connection. SLT Fibre. Call 1212 now.
Tonight, AG excused. The Attorney General cites conflict of interest at the PSC. Upholding democracy. UN expert delivers analysis on Sri Lanka.
It is important that the country's political leader do not dismiss the people's desire for peace.
Another trap. The Army commander cautions that national debt poses a threat to the country's security.
And at the end, Sri Lanka would be asked to accede to the unfavourable agreements.
Constitutional merry-go-round. Reforms dominate Parliament.
Having done all of that, and the Prime Minister comes to the Constitutional Assembly, presents it and says, this is not mine, did not take responsibility. And that criticism of the Prime Minister, I stand with the Leader of the Opposition.
We minority parties have taken a very sincere approach and have compromised as much as possible.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Friday, the 26th of July 2019.
මුහුණ සති කීපයකට කලින් Fair and Lovely men ගෑවට පස්සේ මාක්ස් අඩු වෙලා ෆෑනස් වැඩි වෙලා
මාක්ස් අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ ෆෑනස් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක වැඩි කරගන්න.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening to you and welcome to First at 9 on AdaDerana 24, Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chang. Now, Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, and several officials of the Central Bank appeared before the Parliamentary Select Committee probing the Easter Sunday attacks today. The Central Bank officials testified before the committee, which includes former Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanayake, who was compelled to resign from his post over the controversial bond scam that took place between 2016 to 2017. Testifying before the committee, the Director of the Department of Foreign Exchange of the Central Bank, R. Jayaratne, said that with the amendments made to the Exchange Control Act, it has been difficult to take legal measures against the overseas funds received for the controversial Batticaloa campus.
Today, we don't have provisions to take legal action under the removed Exchange Control Act. As the Bank of Ceylon said, these monies had come when that act was in effect. What had happened was that they had not informed the BOC that this was a loan, and I explained it. The BOC does not accept it to be a loan. However, under the Exchange Control Act, which was in effect then, as a mechanism, we had given a general permission from 2013 to 2015 and then from mid-2015 to 2017, so the bank should do more. Since the bank was not informed that this was a loan, the bank does not have a general permission to repay it. The purpose of funds was not even mentioned in the SWIFT messages, and they were cited as personal transfers.
Personal transfers වශයෙන් තමයි සඳහන් වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ.
අපිට මේ හිස්බුල්ලා මහත්මයා ඇවිල්ලා කියලා තියෙනවා මෙච්චර ගණන් ආවා කියලා. අපිට ලේඛනයක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද මේ දවස්වල මෙච්චර ප්‍රමාණයක් අවක සම්පූර්ණ මුදල.
වාර 7කදී Batticaloa campus එකත් වාර 15කදී හිරා ෆවුන්ඩේෂන් එකට වශයෙන් ලැබිලා තියෙනවා.
දැන් ඔය මේ 2015 තත්ත්වයයි 2017 පස්සේ තිබුණ තත්ත්වයයි මේ ඇක්ට් එක නිසා වෙන බලපෑම මොකක්ද?
ඔව් දැන් 2017 නොවැම්බර් 20ට කලින් සිදු වූ දෙයක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඩිටෙක්ෂන් එකක් කළා නම් ඒ පරණ ඉවත් කරන ලද පනත යටතේ විමර්ශනයක් කරන්න පුළුවන්.
මේ 2017 ගෙන අප සංශෝධනය
2017 ගෙන අලුත් පනත.
ඔය තියෙන කොහෙද ඒ වගේ දේවල් තියෙනවා නම් අපේ නීතිය පද්ධතියට ගේන්න බෑ කියන කොහෙද?
නෑ 2017 පනතේ 30 වෙනි ඔගන්තිය මගින් කෙලින්ම ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා විනිමය පාලන පනත මේ ඉවත් කරනු ලැබේ. එතකොට එහා සමග විනිමය පාලන පනතේ ක්‍රියාකාරීත්වය අවසానයි.
ඒ පනත ගෙනාවේ ඔබතුමාලානේ. ඔබතුමාලා හදලා එව්වේ. මොකෝ මේ මොකෝ නොදන්නවා වගේ තියෙනවා.
නෑ
මහා බැංකුවෙන් 3-4 ගමනක් ඒක සංශෝධනය කළා ඔබතුමාලා එව්වේ ඒක.
No sir. The act actually was not drafted by us.
Why not?
No, sir.
That is not by.
It was done outside the. We were actually very upset about that, sir. We were not included. The act was drafted without the central bank being involved, and then they were asked to comment on it.
ඔය මට හිතෙන විදිහට 2017 නම් අවසාන වශයෙන් Batticaloa campus එකට මුදල් ලැබුණේ. මේ ඇක්ට් එක draft වෙනවා කියලා හිස්බුල්ලා මහත්මයා දැනගෙන ඉන්න ඕන.
ඔව්.
එහෙම වෙන්නත් පුළුවන් ඕන.
දැනට විදේශ විනිමය පනත යටතේ වරද කියන වචනේවත් වරදක් අර්ථ නිරූපණය කරන්නවත් නැහැ. වරද කියන වචනේ මුළු පනතේම එකම එක තැනකයි තියෙන්නේ. විශේෂයෙන්ම දැන් මම නිරීක්ෂණය කරලා තියෙනවා unauthorized money changing රට පුරා සිද්ධ වෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ අනිසි විදිහට සන්තකයේ විදේශ මුදල් ළඟ තබාගෙන ඉන්නවා. පර්මිෂන් එක නැතුව money change කරනවා. ඒ money change $1ක්වත් අපේ ජාතික මූල්‍ය පද්ධතියට එන්නේ නැහැ.
CID එක අධිකරණයට වාර්තා කරනවා මේ මඩකලපුව කැම්පස් එක හදන්න සෞදි වලින් බිලියන 17.5 ලැබුණා කියලා.
මම අර කලින් සඳහන් කළේ වැටික්ලෝ කැම්පස් කොලෙජ් ප්‍රයිවට් ලිමිටඩ් කියන එකට ඩොලර් වලින් අපි ගාව ඉලක්ක දෙන්නේ ඩොලර් මිලියන 24 මිලියන් 646,290. ඒ සමහරට FCI එක වාර්තා කරන්න නැති රුපියල් වටිනාකම වෙන්නේ නැති.
So in your opinion, what should be regulated any further? I think we are highly over-regulated and it is basically having an impact on the economy by itself. What more needs to be done?
No, I think there is a difference between regulation and monitoring. I think what happened is when we deregulated, when we liberalized, we also did away with the monitoring. So what we now have to do is to resurrect the monitoring systems so that we know what is happening. But we shouldn't regulate. I'm not saying we should regulate, but there are some gaps in our monitoring system which we need to fill.
Attorney General Dappala Dilivera was also summoned to appear before the Parliamentary Select Committee today, but the committee failed to get much out of him.
Members of this committee, certain members would be my clients, and I would be appearing for those members of the cabinet who are members of this committee in these fundamental rights applications, and I would have to get instructions from them on the very same issues which are called upon to deliberate as a committee. Now, in that situation, if this committee were to entertain me as a witness at about the same time, parallelly, when there is a court proceeding and the matter is sub judice, there arises an issue which should be seriously considered, that whether I am counsel, as Attorney General, I am counsel for the cabinet of ministers, President, Prime Minister and the entire cabinet. And I have to take instructions from you on the very same matters. And in those circumstances, are you in a position to deliberate on my testimony?
We are possessed of that.
Exactly. Deliberate on my testimony, which I will which I am called upon. No, that's not the only issue. Which I am called upon to give today. So I see a clear conflict of interest there.
What's the next?
The next issue is that now there are proceedings, including this proceeding, 2 other proceedings or 3 other proceedings, one in the magistrates court, where I have advised criminal investigation, and there is counsel from my department who is appearing to assist the police in that investigation. Now these proceedings can and will end up in future action. And apart from that, there are these fundamental rights applications, and I will be required to perform my functions as Attorney General. And in those proceedings, petitioner or any party respondent could submit my testimony before the court and make it part of the proceeding there. Because that there is an attempt now at the moment, if you look at the pleadings, to bring certain proceedings of this committee before the court, to further their cases before the Supreme Court. So in those circumstances, if my testimony is brought before the Supreme Court, where I am counsel, it will compromise my role as counsel. So there is a conflict there. And if I am called upon to testify, this situation will necessarily arise. I envisage it happening because there are already applications. Then the next issue is that if tailoring it to the first issue I raised, there still can be objection that having given evidence before this committee, that I would be probably disqualified from appearing for certain members, members of the cabinet and the cabinet as a whole could be compromised if I testify here. The other issue is that if I testify as a witness here and the criminal prosecutions which are proceeding could result in a criminal prosecution upon indictment. And in the backdrop of that likelihood, I will have to present that indictment as the Attorney General. And if I am being cited as a witness in that trial or that criminal proceeding, my ability to present that indictment will be compromised as the Attorney General. And my officers who are here today are able to present the evidence which I am called upon to do so. And they are here. They are ready. And there won't be a hindrance. The Commission's work will not be impeded or hampered. I have made arrangements to facilitate that process.
Mr. Attorney General, we have gone through carefully the several grounds on which you made submission. Of all of those grounds, we find one ground sustainable, and that is your unique role as one who signs the indictments. In your name, we have decided to allow your request for you not to give evidence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. From the TID dated 7th June 2017, consisting of 25 pages.
Yes.
You have that letter?
We have.
Now, what is the advice that has been sought in that letter?
They have referred තවදුරටත් මෙම වෙබ් අඩවිය හරහා
They have sought advice on National Tawhid Jamaat and if it is a possibility to ban the websites and social media sites of National Tawhid Jamaat which spread extremist views and if it is possible to arrest them and take legal action against them.
අත්අඩංගුවටගෙන විමර්ශනයක් සිදු කිරීමට හැකියාව ඇද්ද යන සම්බන්ධයෙන්
No, you answer the question, please. Yeah. Has there been a reply sent to that letter in writing?
No, in writing, no reply.
No reply has been sent. Almost a year later,
yes,
and saying they have still not received a reply to the letter that they sent you.
Yes.
And they want a reply to that.
Yes.
Right? In addition, what have they sought? Something about Zaran?
Yeah. Mohammed Qasim, Mohammed Saharan Yanayata.
It says it seeks advice since there is no response to the letter with the reference number EER 2017, which requested measures that should be taken about Mohammed Zaharan and Mohammed Qasim.
On 12th of March 2019, after studying these documents, Mr. Malik Qasim called for a consultation. Yeah. They were present for the consultation in the Attorney General's Department. පළවෙනි ලිපිය සමග ලැබිලා තියෙන්නේ මේ වෙබ් අඩවිය වල ස්ක්‍රීන්ෂොට්ස් විතරයි. එහි අන්තර්ගතය පිළිබඳ පිටු 9ම සඳහන් වෙලා නැහැ.
UN Special Rapporteur for Rights to Freedom of Peaceful Assembly and of Association, Clement Wool, urges political leaders to not dismiss people's desire for freedom, rule of law and democracy, particularly in light of the upcoming elections. Speaking to the media today, Wool expressed concerns following the Easter Sunday attacks, saying that the country continues to face deep-set ethnic and freedom and escalation of hate speech. He added that security reforms are required, while noting number of laws which he says jeopardize both freedom of peaceful assembly and freedom of association must be implemented without discrimination.
Following the Easter attack, the President declared a state of emergency, which has been extended 4 times. These regulations appear to have further limited the right to peaceful assembly. Although the protracted and devastating war ended a decade ago, deep-set ethnic and religion divide persists in the country. The failure of Sri Lanka to implement comprehensive security sector reform since the end of the conflict has meant that the mindset of security forces has remained extremely apprehensive. I'm very concerned at the numerous accounts I receive of surveillance, including online surveillance, used to monitor the activity of the civil society sector and intimidate those protesting peacefully for their demand to be heard. Surveillance seems to be particularly prevalent in the north and east of the country and seems to have increased following the Easter Sunday attacks. I'm also alarmed by the high level of the hate speech, both on and offline, that seems to have struck after the Easter Sunday attack, despite the fact that sufficient legislation is in place to effectively combat and prosecute hate speech through, inter alia, the ICCPR Act of 2007, the use of Section 3 of the Act, which criminalizes advocates for national, racial, or religion hatred leading to or inciting discrimination, hostility, or violence, has been used to target minority community, while highly publicized instances of hate speech within the majority community have remained largely unpunished. It is, however, necessary for the government to ensure that the gains that it has made with regarding to democratization and reconciliation are not undermined by the discriminatory application of legislation, the continued state of emergency, extremism, or the propagation of hate speech among the public, both online and offline. It is important that the country's political leaders do not dismiss the people's desire for peace, freedom, rule of law, and democracy, and do not undermine the progress that has been hard fought for, particularly in the run-up to upcoming elections. I'm of the opinion that security sector reform will go a long way in combating unnecessary surveillance of civil society and building trust among communities.
The Special UN Rapporteur went on to highlight concerns pertaining to the proposed Counter-Terrorism Act, particularly with the drafting of the bill.
While it is clear that there are legitimate security concerns to take into consideration, any law enacted with regard to counter-terrorism should be drafted in continuous consultation with civil society, who can play an important role in ensuring that any eventual law enacted is human rights compliance and address the concern of all sectors of the society, including those of security community. In all cases, any draft legislation should be checked for its compliance with Sri Lanka international obligations.
The 19th Amendment to the Constitution, along with constitutional reforms, took centre stage in Parliament today. Minister of Finance Mangda Samarivira, in the meantime, gave a statement on the adjournment debate on constitutional reforms, which was followed by strong views by parliamentarian M.S. Sumandaran and Rauf Hakim.
The history of Sri Lanka, I believe, is a history of crisis. In the last 70-odd years, we experienced the assassination of a prime minister, the assassination of an executive president, a failed coup, 2 youth insurgencies, and a long, bloody civil war. With 1 or 2 exceptions, the common thread uniting the crisis is the national question, the question of how our many communities can live together in amity and flourish collectively.
There was a proposal to abolish executive presidents. That was a promise given to the country. There were proposals for electoral reform. That was also a promise given to the country. But more than both those was a crucial issue of the solution to the Tamil national question. We were trying to resolve that. And during that process, President Mahinda Rajapaksa's representatives in those committees said, don't rush, we must have time. The interim report that was ready in November 2016 could not be brought out until September 2017 because they said we must have longer discussion, we must talk within our party. So you can't have the cake and eat it. And when then time has passed, you can't come and say, oh, now it's the end of the term, now we can't do it, we must always do it at the beginning of the term. All of the proposals on devolution that are contained in the report, which has a draft, are proposals that are endorsed by the chief ministers and opposition leaders of 7 provincial councils other than the north and the east. All of those 7 provinces at that time were ruled by UPFA. Why is your leader then castigating these proposals? This will lead to the division of the country. These are all your own proposals. Main proposals were negotiated and agreed upon. The expert committee consisting of 10 members have given a draft. Having done all of that, and the Prime Minister comes to the Constitutional Assembly, presents it and says, this is not mine, did not take responsibility. And that criticism of the Prime Minister, I stand with the leader of the opposition. He chaired the steering committee. He steered this whole process. And after all of that, he says, the experts are given, now it's up to you. We thought only when the 2 main political parties are together, it is possible. And that is why we gave it our all. Even at the tail end of this government, we will give it our fullest to complete this process. Because the future of this country depends on this process succeeding.
Political leaders have all been very deceptive, have never been sincere. Though we minority parties have taken a very sincere approach and have compromised as much as possible in trying to achieve a final consensus. Now, I feel this document has several important suggestions. A Senate is being proposed, an upper house for this chamber, a second chamber is being proposed. That would bring the provinces and the parliament, and there will be a nexus between the two. And that's a very good exercise. Since a unitary concept was seen as something that was inhibiting proper devolution, the Sinhala Buddhist majority has been too emotionally involved with the Ekiya Rajya concept. So we were prepared to go along with the fact of having that mentioned in Sinhala itself in the formulation of the provision of the Constitution talking about the state and its structure. It escapes our reason why we should insist on having this convoluted provision relating to a unitary state which is impinging on a proper devolution being exercised in the country. 13th Amendment gives by one hand, and sometimes the Supreme Court interferes and destroys everything.
Army Commander Lieutenant General Mahesh Senanayake highlights that the greatest threat to Sri Lanka's national security is its national debt. Speaking at an event held in Colombo last evening, he stressed that this would compel Sri Lanka to undermine its national security interest. He noted that Sri Lanka must also focus on further strengthening the country's armed forces to preserve democracy as well as protect itself from further threats of lone wolf attacks owing to extremism.
Ignite 2020 National Forum, organised by the Sri Lanka Institute of Marketing, took place in Colombo under the auspices of Army Commander Lieutenant General Mahesh Senanayake last evening.
Strengthening of national security will be a hard political choice. To preserve our democracy and other core values, we need to have strong armed forces. Sri Lanka would never be able to get away from the global and regional strategic issues due to many reasons. What required is matured, professional and diplomatic engagement with all concerned to advance our national interest. Since our independence, threat to our national progression has always been emerged from domestic compulsions. Under present domestic security situation, major threats to our national security would always remain within. Due to domestic and external causes, Sri Lanka is often vulnerable for violent extremism and homegrown terrorism. In these circumstances, enemy is invisible and very difficult to detect. Therefore, we are vulnerable for lone wolf attack inspired by homegrown terrorist elements.
The Army Commander went on to highlight the dangers of Sri Lanka's debt situation and its threat to national security.
Believe it or not, the greatest danger to our security comes from the national debts, and our nation has been addicted to debts, and at the end it would be compelled to undermine and compromise our national security interest. Foreign interference in domestic affairs has also made severe consequences to our sovereignty. Due to the prevailing strategic competition in Indian Ocean region, many major powers have compelled to use Sri Lanka as a part of their wider security interest. In such circumstances, our key strategic locations and resources have been used or requested to be used. Sri Lanka would be asked to accede to the unfavorable agreements. Inefficient governance structure could also be considered as one of the major security concerns.
Eyeing the upcoming presidential election, the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna signed MOUs with 10 political parties today to form a new coalition. Speaking to AdaDerana, however, General Secretary of the UPFA MP Mahinda Amaraveera said that the SLFP too hopes to enter into an agreement with the SLPP and will conclude talks by the end of next week.
Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna inked MOUs with 10 political parties today at the official residence of opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa. The parties do not have representation in parliament but are recognised political parties. General Secretary of Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna, Attorney at Law Sagara Karyavasam, signed the agreement on behalf of the party. Thereby, the political parties that entered into MOUs include Maubima Janata Pakshaya, Lanka Kamkaru Eksat Perumuna, Tamil Eksat Nidahas Perumuna, Elawar Democratic Party, Muslim Ulema Party, Liberal Party, Nava Sinhala Urumaya, Prajatantravadi Jatik Vyaparaya, Eksat Lanka Maha Sabhava and Bhumiputra Party. They continue to sell state resources. The 19th Amendment to the Constitution was introduced, but the President is now saying that he has never even laid eyes on it, as if he cannot read. The 19th Amendment was introduced and shown to the country owing to various internal reasons. Now they are planning to table the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. We wish to tell the government that they do not have the right to change the Constitution once more. The right to do so only lies with the next government, which will be established by us. Speaking after the event, UPFA MP Chamal Rajapaksa expressed the following views.
ඔබතුමාගේ නමත් දැන් යෝජනා වෙලා තියෙනවා අපේක්ෂකත්වයට කොහොමද දැන් සූදානම? මම ඉතින් හැමදාම සූදානම්. කොහොමද ඔබතුමාගේ බලාපොරොත්තු? ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂක ධූරයට? නෑ සුදුස්සා සුදුසු වෙලාවෙදී පැමිණේ.
Meanwhile, General Secretary of the UPFA Mahinda Amaraveera expressed his views on discussions with the SLPP. It is our hope to conclude talks as soon as possible within the upcoming week. Talks will be held in the presence of President Maithripala Sirisena and opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa, where we hope most of the decisions will be made.
The Permanent High Court at Bar has moved the hearing of the D.A. Rajapaksa Museum case filed against former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa and 6 others to the 30th of August as the Supreme Court yesterday issued an order preventing the hearing of evidence in case temporarily. The case was taken up before the Special High Court 3-member judge bench consisting of judges Sampath Abekon, Sampath Wijeratne and Champa Janaki Rajaratne today. Deputy Solicitor General Dileepa Piris and President's Counsel Ali Sabri, speaking on behalf of the prosecution and the defence respectively, told the Special High Court that the Supreme Court delivered an order preventing the hearing of the evidence of trial against the former Defence Secretary until the 1st of October. The Deputy Solicitor General told court that the Supreme Court has not suspended the hearing of the case but temporarily prevented the hearing of further evidence in the case. Now, he further informed court that the Attorney General has suggested amending the 7 charges filed against the defendants to 6. Accordingly, the Special High Court ordered to take the case up again on the 30th of August and ordered the defence attorney to inform their stance on the amendment of charges. And with that, we cross over to a short commercial break, but make sure you stay tuned for business news right after that. The Sri Lanka Forex Association is set to host the 58th ACI Financial Markets Association World Congress from the 3rd to the 5th of October in Colombo. The Congress will bring together a collective of influential financial market professionals, regional regulators, policymakers, think tanks, eminent thought leaders, investors and corporates to discuss the theme of the Congress for this year, discovering the role of markets in the new paradigm. A media briefing was held recently in Colombo to announce the event, and during which Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority touched on the country's tourism sector recovery.
During the month of May, daily average arrivals went down to 1,200. There were a few days when we had only 950 tourists coming into the country. But by now, if we look at the last 5 days average, we are exceeding 4,500 tourists a day. So month on month recovery has been significant. The recovery we made in June over May was 64%, and from June to July has so far been over 50%. So it's just a matter of time that we'll be able to fully recover, and we have plans in place to make that happen. Why is this conference that will happen in October important for tourism and for my country? And needless to say, it's not what you say, but who says it as well. So these are professionals at the highest level who would vouch for the security of the country.
Sri Lankan shares rose for a 4th straight session to hit their highest close in over 5 months today, led by a rally in beverage and banking stocks along with healthy purchases by domestic investors. The Asha Price Index ended 1.35% up at 5,872.89 today, with a turnover of 1.2 billion rupees and foreign investments amounting to 187.4 million rupees. Here's a brief report on this week's performance of the Sri Lankan bourse.
During the week, the ASPI gained 2.8%, mainly due to price gains in counters such as Ceylon Cold Stores, Hatton National Bank and Commercial Bank. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 increased by 5.9%. The average daily turnover for the week was down from last week to 720.4 million rupees. Banks, finance and insurance sector recorded the highest sector turnover during the week.
Well, up next is a commercial break, but make sure you stay tuned for more local news. On international news, at a time when most countries in the world are looking at abolishing the death penalty, the United States has gone the other way. Attorney General William Barr announced yesterday that 5 inmates would be executed, adding that they had been convicted of murders, of rapes of children or the elderly. It would mean the resumption of the death penalty after a hiatus of 16 years. The executions have been scheduled for December 2019 and January next year. Barr's announcement lifts what was an informal moratorium on the federal death penalty as opposed to state-directed execution since a 2003 execution of a 53-year-old Gulf War veteran who murdered a 19-year-old soldier. The U.S. government's move to resume executions, however, has been met with severe criticism from rights groups and leading Democrats. Several candidates for the Democratic presidential nominations call for the death penalty to be abolished. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson told the European Union that the Irish border backstop would have to be struck out of the Brexit divorce agreement if there was to be an orderly exit with a deal. Johnson told Parliament the Irish backstop and insurance policy designed to prevent the return of a hard border between the Irish Republic and Northern Ireland must be abolished. The Irish backstop is contained in a protocol of the withdrawal agreement which Johnson's predecessor, Theresa May, agreed to in November. It is the most contentious part of the deal for British lawmakers who fear it will slice Northern Ireland off from the rest of the United Kingdom. Johnson's government does not have a majority in Parliament, so it rules with the help of 10 Northern Irish lawmakers from the Democratic Unionist Party who vehemently opposed the backstop. After Johnson's speech, however, EU's chief Brexit negotiator Michael Barnier sent a note to European leaders repeating the EU's position that getting rid of the backstop was of course unacceptable and labelling Johnson's speech rather combative. But he added that despite disagreements over the backstop, the EU was prepared to work constructively within their own mandate and was prepared to analyse any UK idea on withdrawal issues that are compatible with the existing withdrawal agreement.
You're wasting your vocal cords and above all, it won't work.
We will oppose any deal that fails to bring...
And with that, we conclude this edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.